you guys think of the film? I take it you liked it. So I'm going to bring up the star of Three from Hell, Sheri Zombie, and the writer-director, Rob Zombie.
Ooh, recliners.
You guys sit. I'll help.
Yes, I'm an Oscar!
Oh, yeah.
I don't want the chair to fall over. Before we start, I just want to say thank you for coming, because I know the movie's been online for a couple weeks and everyone's been ripping and stealing it, and for you to get out of your house and come here and be here, that's pretty fucking awesome, so thank you.
We should acknowledge one of the other stars in the film, Jeff, who's up there, Jeff Phillips. Can you just wave?
What is he doing?
So our first question is for Jeff. Our first question is actually for Sheri, the star. So, to me, the only unbelievable thing about the movie is that it takes place over a decade later, because you literally look exactly the same as when you shot the first two movies. But your character is perhaps one of the most iconic genre characters ever. How do you revisit that character all this time later? What's the approach with you when there's this gap, cinematic gap and real gap in real life? How do you approach that process?
Hello, everyone. First, let me just say that I normally don't do stuff like this. I get really nervous, and I don't like talking like myself. If I'm pretending to be somebody else, that's okay. But this is just really uncomfortable for me. Hi, Dave. Oh my God, look at you, you're a big boy now. How did I prepare for this?
Yeah, but specifically because, you know, your character ages in the film, right? This is 10 years later. She's gone through a lot. She's been in prison. What's the approach to the acting approach to that character all this time later? How do you get into the headspace of someone who's been secluded from society for that amount of time?
I prepare. Read the script, memorize the script. I know Jeff's lines, and I know everybody's. I just know the script. That's how I start. And then I work on various things. I worked on preparing how to throw knives. I took knife throwing lessons. I had a few lessons with bow and arrow. I practiced rolling joints. Woo! Scene with poncho. We thought that was really important for that, so we really practiced that.
It looked very seamless.
Thank
You
you.
looked like the pro that I wanted.
I was really most proud of that one. Really, it makes me uncomfortable to talk about how I prepare. It's just so private and weird and personal and dumb and stupid and crazy, like what I do to get where I go. I don't even know how to explain it, really.
I mean, I'll just say, as such a fan of the franchise and a fan of yours specifically in your work in these films, and I know the audience agrees, and everybody I've talked to talks about your performance specifically in this movie and how wonderful it is and how you were able to pull that off. Because it's not easy. You know, it's not easy playing someone going through that sort of psychological tear and then breaking from prison, and it's like a whole new character emerges in a way. And that transformation was just so well done. So, congrats on that.
Thank you very much.
Now I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, you started it.
Who's working? Whoa.
It sounds louder. Maybe it'll be more effective.
I'll pipe down.
So the first draft I remember reading of the script, I was in tears the entire time because it meant a lot to me as a person, but also it was just such a wonderfully done script and such a perfect continuation of the story. And then I get a call from you saying, hey, Sid's not going to be able to do that version of the script because his health had declined and unfortunately he couldn't pull it off. And I was like, we're fucked. There's no way that this movie's going to exist. And you turned that script around and added a complete new character to it, and it is the absolute best version of the script, the amount of time you did it in, and how you were able to just include a new character into that mythology so seamlessly. is really, really amazing. How fast did it take you to pivot, and how did you come up with that so quickly?
Wow. Well, it was pretty weird because I remember driving to the set, because we had all this set, a lot of the sets were built out in sound stages in Chatsworth. I'm driving to the set and I think, wow, this is the most prepared I've ever been to start a movie. Nothing can go wrong. I'm like, everything's dialed in, and then my phone rings and it's Sid. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then he tells me what's going on. I'm like, oh, fuck. But I'm just sort of like talking to him, like, oh man, it's gonna be good. It's gonna, I thought maybe, I didn't know what to think. I mean, it's kind of like not prepared to accept the reality of what he was telling me at that moment. So I went to the office and I told Mike Elliott, the producer, and that day Bill Moseley had come into the office to get his wig fitting done. And I told Bill, and he was pretty shaken by what I told him, what Sid had told me, which I'm not going to say exactly what it was because I don't think it's been made public what it actually was that he told me. But at that point I thought, okay, well, maybe he'll get better. He just had this procedure done, he's in the hospital, he's 79, so I'll just keep hoping for the best. So I went to visit him in the hospital, and it was very shocking because he was, he's like a big guy. He's like 6'4", and he, weighs whatever. But he was like a skeleton, and he's laying in his hospital bed looking, if he didn't have his beard, I would have no idea who he was. He looked so different. So I thought, oh, this ain't gonna work. So then I started rewriting the script, little by little, thinking, okay, well maybe he can live to here, and he can do this, and maybe he doesn't have to walk in the scene, he can just sit down, and maybe if Otis does this, he can just react to it. I was like trying to figure out everything to make it work. And then another week went by, and we're really on top of shooting. That's when Sheri and Bill came with me to see him, and he didn't seem any better. In fact, I thought he seemed maybe worse than the week before. And at that point, which a lot of people don't know this, we're like, well, we had been hiding all that from Lionsgate. I told you, but I hadn't told Lionsgate because the fear was what was about to happen. So we finally told Lionsgate, and they immediately canceled the movie. They go, oh, one of the main people can't do it, movie's canceled. They're just like, there was no argument, it was just done. And that was a Thursday afternoon. And luckily, our producer, Mike Elliott, used to work for Roger Corman, so he's always shucking and jiving, like figuring out, how to make things happen. He was like, well, we already paid the crew for Friday, so can we at least work through Friday, giving me 24 hours to reinvent the whole script. And I knew that Jason Constantine at Lionsgate, who was in charge of the project, was a big fan of Richard Brake from 31. So I go, okay, if I can figure out where Richard is, and I can write this part, maybe I can sort of just, sell him this used car tomorrow on the phone, and the movie can get greenlit again. So I got on the phone and did this whole shuck and jive, and he was like, oh, okay, let's keep going. And I remember being in the office, and we hung up the phone, and Mike Elliott, the producer, was like, that's the first time in the history of movies where a movie was dead, and they turned it around based on some new wacky pitch. I don't know if that's technically true, but he was in shock, having he didn't think what happened. So from that moment forth, it was like working towards the movie that we made. But it was fucking nuts, because even at that point, I was still thinking Sid could do more than he could do. But then, he wasn't even supposed to be in the movie. We snuck him on set to shoot that because he couldn't get insured by the insurance company. They were like, no way. Man, there was a lot of lying and deceit going on to everybody to get this movie done. Let's put it that way. It was not easy, but you get to a point where you're ready to go, and you just, I refuse to quit. I don't care what has to happen.
Yeah, well, I can say
that's an inspiring story. It was fucked up. Let me just put that was a fucked up scenario.
I worked on 31 with you too, and I think everyone who saw the performance you got out of Richard in that movie, and like a part of me is like, oh my god, maybe that character could be in the mythology of Three from Hell. But I had no idea how you were going to do it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would work. I thought I have this knack for killing off every character, so there was like nobody left to bring back. I can't justify Ken Foray survived the axe attack.
Yeah. Which, we got Danny back.
Which he hates me for killing him in that movie, I think. But he always brings it up. But whatever, we're here.
I think one of the things that struck me about your performance, Sheri, obviously you're playing a sadistic murderer, but you're so charming and lovable. And in particular in this movie, you're very funny. Like you're funny. You're like it's like a great comedic performance in addition to being incredibly terrifying. I want to know as a fan, have you ever thought about doing a more broad comedy? Is that something in your future?
I never thought of myself as a comedic actor, but Rob has tons of funny ideas, and there's this, something that's really funny, and
There's things floating around.
yeah. But I would love to. Oh my God, I would love to. Yeah.
I think we'd all love to see that. You guys rehearse at home then, or is this a thing? Do you bring work home with you?
No, we don't. Back in the day, we used to, but I don't know what she was doing half the time, and I mean that in a good way. Like the script might just say, walks into the room, and I didn't know she was gonna dance into the room singing about, popping party hats or whatever crazy shit she was saying. And even when I would say, like, what were you saying? She's like, I don't know. Like, so, she won't toot her own horn, of course, but she would get in the thing and just crazy stuff would come out. And it's not written in the script like that. It's not saying do that. That's all her creation the whole time.
Yeah, well, because it's almost like the way you bring that character to life, you really can't script that, right? Like the parole hearings, like, it was, and sometimes I felt like I was watching like a Manson documentary. I know that we talked about that, especially in that first, tranche of the movie. Like those characters, these very sort of historically insane people, are also really charismatic and fascinating to watch. And that, I
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, the parole hearing was totally scripted. It's just, just work on the delivery, and that's, everybody would do it in a different way, I guess. And I just did it that way.
That's the way.
Pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of that parole piece and that opening, one of the early things I remember you talking about was you wanted to create, a wholly unique film language for this movie. You wanted it to stand alone. It's not just a continuation of Devil's Rejects or House of a Thousand Corpses. It is its own movie.
Yeah, I mean, originally I thought I was going to make the documentary portion like a half an hour long. Because I really wanted to get into it, and I thought, like, people are going to sit there going, what the fuck am I watching? So I thought, I think right now it's like 7 minutes. It's pretty short, but I thought, as much as I would like to do things like that, I don't want to torture the audience particularly, but, we did have a cut where it went on forever. Yeah, I tortured them somewhat, but not to the point where they're like, what the fuck am I watching? So yeah, there was an early cut where it goes on forever.
Yeah, I remember those.
Because there's so much other footage of that stuff.
And then one of the things I think that were taking place, and like the parole hearing I think comes to mind, where it actually comes in a timeline of the movie after we break the documentary portion, but it just fits so seamless in everything else you did.
Yeah, I shot it for the beginning documentary part, but then just when you get into editing, things change. You just realize, oh, there's too much of this, there's not enough of that, that would be better played here and flipping there. It's the way, just trying to find, the movie finds its own rhythm after a while.
So I know a question probably a lot of people have. Do you envision ever a continuation story for these characters? Is this the opus? Is there something brewing that you have in mind that you want to explore?
I mean, I always have ideas. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever do it, but,
When you sign these docs and you'll do it?
I definitely feel that, the three of them staying in Mexico and starting this porn company would be a good movie. I know, exactly. Like, just taking it, but no, I don't think so.
Did you know that you were, or how, I shouldn't say did you know, when did you decide this is the next movie you wanted to make? When did you decide you wanted to revisit those characters?
I think it was about 3 years ago that I just thought, like, it would always pop up in my mind, and I'd be like, I forget it, and I would just file it away. But truthfully, it was like, the end song, the last song in the movie, the Terry Reid song, every time I would hear that song, it felt like the song I didn't use in Devil's Rejects. Well, it was the song I didn't use in Devil's Rejects, but it felt like it was supposed to be that. They would always make me think of another movie. And eventually one day I was like, fuck it. And that's when I went to Lionsgate and started talking to him about it. And then, we just all got together for lunch and started talking about it, and here we are.
I want to open it up a little bit to the audience. If people have questions, I'd love to call in some people. I'm going to run mics over, so it's going to be who I can get to first.
So, have you always been a fan of the James Gang?
Yeah, I always loved the James Gang, and the funny thing with the James Gang was with it, music is so expensive to put into movies. And it just so happened that when I was talking to my manager, Tony, he goes, I'm good friends with the guys in the James Gang. So if you want any James Gang music, let me know. And I was like, perfect, because I do. So that's how that worked.
That last song, and I got a Vita too, where it played and how iconic it became in this movie. I mean, it was a tough act to follow in Devil's Rejects.
Well, it gets expensive, like, especially in 31, where to use Dream On at the end of the movie was probably like a third of the budget of the movie. But sometimes I just feel like you need it, you know? It just needed, and I got it. All the songs are expensive. For a movie like this, but I always feel like one thing that makes a movie feel low budget is like when you don't hear any, the music feels like they couldn't afford the music. So we always find a way to. So our music budget on this was zero. I remember that we're at the end of shooting, and I was going over, well, what do we have left for music? And it was literally zero. So that's when the shucking and jiving comes in, and we figure it out.
Well, it's also the movie spans different locations. I mean, the production value in the prison scenes. The kind of cool, the segment where you're having this sort of feverish daydream when you're locked in prison. You see the cat, and there's just so much production value in this movie. I know what you shot it for.
Yeah.
It's insane the amount of days you had and what you were able to pull off from a performance perspective and a scale. I mean, it's such a scale movie.
I mean, a lot of times people are like, why do you like to use the same actors? And the reason is because I can trust them. Because, I know for a fact Sheri will be 1,000%. 100% ready, or Jeff, or Richard, but when sometimes you bring in somebody new you haven't worked with, and you go, oh, I expect everyone to nail it on the first take. This guy's like one of those 15 take guys. We don't get time for a 15 take guy. So, you just want to use people you trust.
Something you said to me stuck with me so much, and I noticed this in other films now. You said, everyone you cast, you want to look interesting. And if you watch your movies, every single person who's on that screen has a memorable look to them. You have this knack for finding characters and idiosyncrasies in people that I don't think other filmmakers see.
Well, they might see it, but I think I was always, as a kid, when I'd watch a movie, I was attracted to character actors. Not necessarily, say a movie like Bonnie and Clyde. Like Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway are incredible, but I was like Michael J. Pollard. I was like veer off. Like even that's how I first, with Sid Haig. He was never the star of anything. He was always in the background, thug guy or something. And I just thought, that guy seems so interesting all the time. He's got like one line. And, I just take a chance sometimes taking those sort of background character people and bringing them forward. And they usually, always deliver.
It adds such a richness to the movies, too.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people like, not to be too in the weeds, but a lot of filmmakers, the first question they're asked when they pitch a movie is like, who are you going to put in it? What celebrity are you going to put in the movie? And because Sheri has crafted such an iconic character, and because has such a fan base, you really can make the movies and cast the people you want to cast, and that's just a testament to your work and what you've been able to do, and your eye for talent, really.
Well, I just want to make the movies I want to make, and if they don't want to do it that way, I just go, fine, let's not do it.
Yeah.
Because nothing would be, if the movies, I just want to be responsible for it. If it's awful, it's because I made it awful. It's great, it's because I made it great. And I don't want it to be something that I didn't want to make because some executive was like, well, you really should put this guy in it. And then I'm just watching like, oh, I knew that guy was wrong. Why did I? So I just rather just not make the movie.
I've definitely been that executive in the room, by the way.
And I'm looking at you when I say that.
I hate that. Is there any other questions?
I don't even like.
Oh, you can project, right.
So, thank you for getting Sid in that movie. I think that's a true tribute. I hope I appreciate that. Was the clown scene a tribute to Sid? Because it was kind of.
No, it wasn't a tribute. It was supposed to be that scene was always in the movie, but it would have been Captain Spaulding who opened the door and got into it with him. And the scene was a little more drawn out with the guy going, come on, stop hassling me, it's just some shitty gig, and they get into sort of a clown war. But then I just kind of fell in love with the idea of a clown at the door. Handled it, and then Otis answers the door. And the funny thing is that when Bill says in the movie, or Otis says, I hate clowns, that was one of Bill, that was just an ad-lib, which I thought was weird. I don't know what Bill was trying to tell me, but he was like, I fucking hate clowns, so it's weird.
Yep.
Rob, the scene when everybody's going to the hotel room in Mexico, They pan over to a dresser, and there's a Duran Duran record, 12-inch, I Don't Want Your Love, on the table. Is that there for a reason, or not?
Definitely not. Is that the one? Is that the one that has like a heart shape on it? No, actually, to be honest, I always was thinking, I wonder what the fuck that record is. All right.
That was
And
I
then,
didn't know.
and then
I
she
noticed.
plays In the Garden of Eden at the end, so I'm like,
Yeah.
that was my one note as an executive. It has to be Duran Duran.
Yeah. Hopefully it's time period correct now. I'm worried.
Rob, Duran Duran fan? Yes, sir.
I know I don't care about Duran Duran. But if you are, that's cool. I'm not judging. I don't own any Duran Duran records, but I'm not judging. You should address it to Sheri. Sheri, Duran Duran.
Yes.
All right, forget it.
Sarah, I won't put you on the spot, but I got a quick, if you could do it for us, that'd be great. Your iconic cackle pointing laugh.
You could sing
You don't have to,
Rio.
if you don't want to. I love it.
Rio is another Duran Duran song.
Oh, yeah.
You just got the real thing. That's that one.
Say something funny. Whatever you need to do,
Something's fine. It's like your evil cackle that you're gonna like about to.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
I am fighting.
You do have a little bit of a sore throat, so you can't get the full effect.
Thank you.
The characters have evolved so much from the first movie. Was it hard for you to make them into these like kind of lovable, almost like relatable characters without hard decision?
Well, I thought that yes and no. I mean, what happened was like I thought the way the characters had become popular in real life, you know, that I thought, well, that's what I'll do with the characters within the movie. Like they get their own fan base, like the characters got their own fan base in real life. And my only thought was, I thought, well, you know, I'll make Otis is a little more mellow. He still does horrible things, but he's not so crazy. And then we talked about having Baby always just like cuckoo, like she's on another orbit through the whole movie. So that's why sometimes she's super nice, and then she's completely crazy, and she doesn't care, and you know, we discussed that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Baby gets through life with having a different personality for everybody she encounters. That's what
Yeah, and it made it interesting too, that then we could have the scene where, you know, like a true psychopath, she's really nice with the poncho when they're eating breakfast, but she really doesn't care. Because she's too crazy to care. Like she could just kill him and walk away. Like it's like, sort of like, you know, just keeping her nuts. Like she kind of liked Greta, but she didn't really care. That was much like the same as he's here. Dave, who played young Michael Myers, is here. That was the thought with Michael Myers too. Like true psychopath doesn't hate you. They just don't care. Like they feel nothing. They might be charming and wonderful, but they'll still kill you. That's how they get away with it so much. Like Ted Bundy or something.
I have a question coming off of that. So, Baby never really shows true emotion, right? She feels it, whatever emotion she is, the time she's in.
Right.
But when you see the cat, the theatrical dancer, and you start crying for the cat, can you elaborate on
Like what's going on from an emotional perspective in that character when she sees that? Yeah, that is a powerful scene. It's a very human scene for your character.
motivation, just, you know, her coping mechanism was going off into these fantasy dreams, and this one just didn't, it ended too quick for her, and I don't know, I mean, it's just so deep and weird. We wanted to show how she coped, and I think after being in 10 years of solitary.
Metaphor. Oh, that's what the word.
Oh, metaphor.
So you were telling the story when you're with the, is it the warden?
Yeah.
Was there a character of the warden in this movie?
When you're telling the story about just like what is she talking about, and then you see that, I just thought it was like a metaphor.
Yeah, baby loves cats. She loves cats. Well, I mean, kitty cats are a very little girl kind of fluffy, safe toy, and this is just one of the, excuse me, many little things that we wanted to plant throughout baby's
And that's what I felt like
character, yeah.
when you think to a child memory of something that when you're younger, or when baby was younger, that she
Well, yeah, I mean, there was nothing specific about like she had a favorite stuffed animal or anything like that. And that's kind of weird. But yeah, there was, yeah.
And I was too, like, that's how many lives.
That's such a cool way to say that, and now that you're saying that, the idea that, your character, Sheri, is who she has to be. And she really is a true chameleon, and your character has had to survive, is a survivor, ultimately. I remember when you're in the parole hearing, and like me as a fan, even though I know the script, I'm rooting for you to get out, and then you don't. And then you think you're so blasé about it, and then you end up, getting into that fight. It's like just the dynamics of that character, and as Rob said, just truly being who you need to be in the moment. That's definitely not an easy thing to do as an actor. Very cool.
And that moment for sure was, like you said, it's like Charles Manson. I took that exact one thing she said from Manson. I remember watching, I forget which parole hearing it was, I think it was in the 80s. And they're going on and on about, he's like the worst prisoner. He's got so many violations, and he's just talking crazy. It goes on except it goes on forever. And then after they finally deny him, he just goes, "That's cool." That was it. Like, he had no response whatsoever, because he knows he's nuts and he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But he loves the attention with his cameras. Let's do this. But I just thought it just cracked me up.
What we also find is, it does have its own film language and it's a distinct film, but there's certainly homages, I think, in the storytelling, in Devil's Rejects in particular, when they're talking about ice cream, where you find these human moments in your characters that are seemingly banal, and you think of these sadistic people who just have like everyday thoughts like the rest of us, right?
Well, that's something that I didn't know. When I made Devil's Rejects, you just make the movie in a vacuum. You don't know if anyone's going to like it. You don't know what they're going to like about it, because it's like anything. People go, "Oh, that's the best scene," and then another person will say, "No, that's that's the worst scene in the whole movie." You just don't know what anyone's going to think. And that ice cream scene was, kind of like a throwaway scene. That's one of those scenes where someone will go, "Oh, that's the first thing you get to cut out of the movie. It's totally useless." Kind of like the scene where they go by the chickens and the chicken fucking and all that. That was another scene that, I think the studio would be like, "Oh, just lose that. That's just a bunch of nothing." And you go, "I don't know, maybe it is a bunch of nothing." And then they become the weird moments that people remember. So that was the only thing that I knew going into this, or I thought this, it's not always about, "Oh, how violent can you make it?" Because then someone will always repeat back just this nothing scene of them talking about weird shit. So so there's a bunch of scenes of them talking about nothing but weird shit.
Yeah, it's like to root for them. It's it's based on obviously the writing and filmmaking, and then the performances. It comes down to that. You have to be lovable characters that people want to watch, and sometimes that includes just really banal thoughts about what they're into. And
Well, yeah, you're asking a lot of an audience sometimes to go, "Oh, these people are horrible and despicable, but I want you to root for them," because there really is no reason you should root for them. But I always figured, well, if one of them's beautiful and one of them's funny and one of them's cool, you'll root for them.
they're all Sheri. They're just beautiful, cool, and funny. That's you got them all in one. See?
Woo!
Yeah. So I'm also a big fan of your music, and I love that you recorded your
Yes. I've actually toured with them 5 times, so not twice. We go way back. No,
True.
just not for any bad reason, but doing movies is a real singular thing, and it's
Writing a song or a movie?
music would be easier, yeah. Well, we did a song together, that was easy, but yeah, no.
anyone who's
I
watched.
need one of those shirts that says "does not play well with others." That's what I need to do it myself.
I don't know if anyone, I mean, sure, a lot of people here have watched the making of documentaries of, Rob's work in these movies, but I can tell you from my experience, he's one of the most meticulous and prepared filmmakers ever. And you couldn't make movies like this on the amount of days he made this for without having that. Like you control the entire universe. You're a world.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I want everything exactly a certain way, and just because what other way would I want it? The way that someone else wants it? I mean, you have to be that way. It's not because you're a control freak. It's your movie, and who else is going to do it? So that's just the way it is, and I don't think of it like. I think a lot of times people get like, oh, I want to direct movies because I want to wear a beret and riding pants and just yell action through a megaphone. But like that's some grandiose idea of what it'll be. But I mean, I love going to the stage every day and painting with the crew and fixing the sets so that the Mexican hotel room was painted exactly how I want it. Even though it always makes people mad because I'm not in that union, so I really shouldn't be doing that, but I do it anyway. But I love every aspect of it.
It was really cool too to see your relationship on set as well, because Sheri's a true collaborator. I noticed often Video Village, you guys were talking and going over stuff, and it was like you had such a voice in that process. I hadn't been on any of the other sets of your other movies, so that was very cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, just normal day.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about things all day long. When we're on set, we just tend to talk about what we're doing on the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's preparation is everything. Because there's not a lot of time. There's no time to be like, oh, I wonder what we should do next. You're already behind schedule. If
We
you're
never
gonna do
stop talking about it. We're still talking
Still
about
talking
it.
about it. That's the only thing when people are like, how is it working together? It's great for me, but it drives her crazy because, like the other actors wrapped a year and a half ago and they only had to listen to me for 20 days or something. She's been listening to it nonstop for 3 years. And, that ain't fun. I'm sorry. It's awesome.
Would you ever make a doc or a film that kind of speaks to the activism that you both do in terms of animals
It never crossed my mind, actually. There's so many other people doing that are doing it great, but no. Not that we wouldn't, but I just never thought about that.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Never thought about it till right now, so you never know.
The Firefly family goes vegan. Maybe this is the.
Sometimes wondered that for years, since I went to Salem, down the house, and I noticed some house makeup or maybe it's makeup. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't, actually.
He was kind of like correcting Sheri's character, and he had like this black, like white.
Oh, Torsten. No, he was, that was our generic Norwegian death metal guy. Which I guess all sort of look like they're wearing Gene Simmons makeup at times. So yeah, that's what that was. Or
I think we have
Count
time.
Gorgon.
A couple more questions. I see your hand the highest.
This is actually Bret's for you. Was there a particular scene that you both enjoyed really filming?
Probably not the same answer, so what do you think? Particularly.
What do I think that we both enjoyed?
Or your own perspective?
I don't know. I loved every scene. I just loved every scene. I really did. I loved working with Dee.
Yeah.
The stuff with Dee Wallace. I love working with her. I love working with Jeff and Bill and everyone.
I really enjoyed the scene where the warden's doing cocaine and freaking out. Because we were shooting it, and
Richard.
Jeff is like one of those actors where you just let him go. And the takes were like 15 minutes long. He's just going ballistic in the room, doing cocaine, smashing things, kicking chairs, screaming and yelling. And he'd come out like, how was that? like sweating half dead. I was like, that was 15 minutes long. Let's do it again. And I don't know what he's gonna do, and I never stop him. I mean, I'm sitting behind the monitor laughing because it's just there's so much craziness going on. But stuff like that's fun, and because it's so random the way we're doing it. And then there's other scenes I really like. The first time when Baby kills the guy the first time with the bow and arrow, where everything's totally meticulous. Like you get such a short focus with the lens to get her eye tight, and then the rack focus to the end of the arrow, where everything's super planned out. So it's kind of a nice match between like complete craziness and just trying to figure out where. And now Jeff's behind the chair. No, it's over here. Now it's, and then just like everything where it's really super planned. So yeah, it's all fun.
There's some very beautiful shots, and then especially I'm thinking of Sheri, that one where you kind of come up right before you fire in the room with the clapping monkey. It's just such a beautifully done shot moment. It's like terrifying, but aesthetically so cool. It's like, you know, that's part of the signature of that movie.
Yeah, that was part of that sort of completely planned out
Music,
scene.
too,
Yeah.
is going, right? Or is that before it?
I forget. I think Anna got it is starting to come back up. I remember when we built the set for that, and it's like talking about being specific. I needed the door in exactly the right place because I knew how big the dresser was that had to fit behind it. And the construction guys built the door even just like 6 inches over. I go, well, it doesn't work. Like, what do you mean? What does it matter? And I go, you have to rebuild the whole thing because it had to be exactly where the door would fit and she could hide. So yeah,
The whole production.
nothing's random.
The whole production design. One of my favorite people is on the wall, which I just think is so great for that character. And it's so funny.
Well, what's funny about that picture too is, Jeff is right there already. Jeff Phillips, who played the ward, he's hiding it. Jeff is one of those guys that's so great where you just, way before you need him to do it, and just when you start, like, I'm like, oh, we need to get a picture of the warden. So he's already off doing photo shoots. The full hair, the suit, the mustache, and I got like 10,000 photos to choose from, and we picked the most kind of like pompous looking one. That's what we made the big oil painting out of. But yeah, I love working with people that take it to that extreme.
I had a question for both of you, actually, when it comes to inspiration for the script, for the character, as the character changes movie to movie, it seems just a little bit. And each movie is unique for what the script writes. Like this one kind of came off more of Grindhouse meets, again, wrestling. What were the major inspirations for both of them?
Well, I mean, it starts with me, I guess, first with the script, and I always think like, I mean, it's, for me, it's 50, I mean, I probably wrote the script for House of a Thousand Corpses 20 years ago. So that started 20 years ago. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking when I was writing that. I really can't remember, you just crazy shit. And then Devil's Rejects was probably 15 years ago. So I just do where I'm at now. Like, that's kind of what inspires it. And I don't know what it could be at any given moment. Like, everybody's named after the Marx Brothers characters because I was probably super obsessing about the Marx Brothers 20 years ago. At that moment, I'm like, oh yeah. So that's why I never do things like, it's always changing because I'm always changing. And if I try to make it exactly the same, because even with the look of the film, with me and Dave Daniel, who was the cinematographer and he did Rejects too, there was a point where we were trying to make it look exactly the same and it was feeling wrong. Because Mexico is very colorful. I was like, now we're just making it look drab just to do it. And it doesn't look right. So I'm like, this movie wants to be something else. And I feel to just force it to seem like the other movies would just feel cheap in a way. Like it's not being its own movie. And that was kind of weird because if you look at the opening shot of House of a Thousand Corpses to the closing shot of this, it doesn't seem like these movies could be connected. Because it really does end as some sort of weird Mexican spaghetti western. But c'est la vie. Same with the character, right? I mean, you just kind of pick it up where you're at.
Yes, and I think, it's just growth as a human, as a director. You just, we're not staying the same in 20 years. That would be weird if you're exactly the same. You have different life experiences and you learn things and gain knowledge and do something that you may have done a different way, I don't know, differently now.
Yeah, I mean, in order for it to be the same, I would have to just sit there constantly studying the other movies, trying to just copy myself.
I haven't
and that
even
would
seen
seem
House of
absurd.
Thousand Corpses since we had the premiere. I don't even,
I know you, yeah.
I won't. It's just always,
I don't know, yeah, we don't go back and rewatch everything, that's for sure.
I do.
Good.
I just want to say it's awesome to meet you first. Like, I was a fan of yours since I was a kid.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Alvin and I were my mom taking me, so I meet you. But this is for Sheri. Like, do you ever like after like a long day of shooting and like you mentioned, you kind of just do your own thing. Do you ever just like end the day like with like a kind of like a come down? Like, man, I really went crazy today. Like trickle into like after.
No, not on a daily basis. I don't have time for that because when we're done shooting, it's sleep, and then get up early, and inevitably have new pages because Rob's gotten up even earlier and written new dialogue. So there's no time to think like that. But
Yeah, that's always
when
a
there's hard
sketchy
crash
breakfast
at
when
the
I'm like,
end-
and here's the new pages.
Yeah.
Sorry. But it is funny because, say the scene where she's throwing the knives, like outside with the guys in the Mexican village. It was freezing, because we're all behind heaters at the monitors wearing coats. I mean, actually, I won't wear it because I feel bad. I'll try to suffer with the actors, but she's out there in this backless, thin dress, frozen, and like acting like, hey, it's hot and I'm partying. So it's really funny sometimes how different what's going on is compared to what's going on. So usually at the end of the night when we wrap, everyone looks like they just want to literally pass out. Like the dancing scene, it was like the sun was coming up. We'd been there all night, and I was like, now let's shoot everyone partying. And these guys looked at me like, you fucking asshole. You can't even stand up straight, and now you want everyone to dance and dance and dance.
Vegan power!
Yeah.
Woo!
And I think we played the Bee Gees or something ridiculous, trying to put everyone in a good mood.
It was definitely 70s disco.
Disco Inferno or something.
I think we have time for one more question.
What's next?
Or two really bad.
Two.
The most difficult scene to shoot was when Baby first comes into the house after escaping, and the reason it was difficult is because there's so many actors in such a small space. You get Jeff's there, and you get Richard, and you get Bill, and you have Kevin lying on the floor. I don't know. You get dead Mr. Baggy Britches, and there's like I don't know how many actors was in that scene. 8 or 9 people all in one scene. And I kept doing this type of thing where I'm like, okay, she's going to come through there, he's going to react, but then he's going to do this, and he's going to run, and just trying to get all the coverage. And we kept rehearsing it, and it just sucked. And we're all like, why is this so flat? It just felt like no energy. And then, I don't know when it switched, you came through the door, and when you went, Foxy! Just the whole energy in the room shifted, because we weren't going to do it like that originally.
No, we were going to do more of a greeting with Otis and Baby, and I don't know, it didn't feel right, so we just changed it.
Yeah, I don't know, some things are just difficult. Like the scene in the church, for some reason, it may play simple, but it's like, okay, she comes in, he gets the drop on her, she spins, but then he gets shot in the back, and he spins around, and you just go, why did I write it like this? It's a fucking nightmare to get all this blocking down, to get every angle on this. So those are the scenes that are difficult, but that's just because they're technical.
Do you both have a favorite movie out of the 3 films?
I don't know yet. I mean, right now I'm pretty high on this film because it's fresh in my mind and I've seen it like a million times. I haven't seen the other movies in a long, long time. And I used to think I really hated House of a Thousand Corpses because everything I wanted to do, it seemed like it didn't work. But I saw some of it not that long ago. I was like, oh, it's so different than I remember. Like I remember it like, in your mind you remember it so different. It's like that with all my records too. I finish a record, I'm like, that record sucks. And then I'll hear it later, and go, I hate it so much for it now. But so yeah, it's still kind of a big mess because when we watch the movies, we don't see the movies, we see everything else that was going on all day long. And you're just thinking, I didn't feel good that day because lunch was terrible, and then that guy showed up late, and I was pissed at him because I put me 3 hours behind. Like it's hard to watch it like it's a movie, not like it's chaos. Yeah. Sorry, that was a terrible answer, but no.
So I went to a screening at the Egyptian of Lords of Salem, Cleveland, and Foster,
Yeah.
Matthew, and Wallace were there. They were talking about how amazing they were. And like, we watched the movie after, they were naked, writhing, and like, covered in mud. And I kept thinking about it, like, you're like, Bob's such a great guy. And, you know, you inspired these women to do roles that I would think would be very difficult. And I just wanted to know, like, how do you make them feel calm in some of those, challenging or vulnerable?
Well, I mean, I run the set like no bullshit. Like, if anyone's being kind of weird, they're gone. And I've gotten into huge blowouts with even like my cinematographer and took him aside and was fucking screaming at him.
Not this one.
No, not on this film, not anyone that I work with over and over. But just, you know, because it has to be 100% professional. If it's not, they can't work for me ever. So because I need the actors to feel so comfortable, they don't care. Like even in this film, at first you can tell, oh, I gotta be naked all day, and then after 5 minutes they don't give a shit. Because the crew doesn't give a shit. They really don't. They don't pay any attention to it. And I think, but to really answer your question, I think what happens sometimes is a lot of these actresses, they're older, and the best role they get is like grandma in the background baking cookies. So you go, oh no, you're the lead, and you have all these things to do. They're like, whoa. Usually they gave me one line and I'm gone. Because like Meg Foster and Judy Geeson and Dee Wallace, they're all great. And I don't think that they have to always play grandma, you know.
Pat Quinn.
Pat Quinn was another one. I mean, all of them. I mean, you know, everybody. I mean, you know, Bill Moseley's, 67. You know, most studios would go, oh, he should be the big action hero lead guy. It's like, oh, he can play the grandfather in the background. So, I don't see it that way. You know, I just see them for what they can do, not what they can't do. I think they appreciate that is what it is, actually. Or, I'm just supposing what they appreciate.
Did Sid get a chance to see the movie before he passed?
No, because the first time everybody would see the movie was at the premiere, and that was the same week he went back into the hospital. I think he went back into the hospital like maybe 2 days before, so no, he didn't see it. Which is, is a bummer. That's happened with a couple actors over the years that passed away.
Did you ever think about making a prequel?
No, I never did because I like these actors and what they've done, and the prequel would be like, oh, I'm going to recast all of you with younger people.
Like Benjamin.
That would suck. So yeah, it never crossed my mind.
What's next?
I don't know.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
More money to make another movie.
Okay, right here. I was going to call it, but you had your hand up for a long time, so I'm giving it to you.
If you're writing like some of these sadistic scenes, do you have any like remedies to get in there?
Oh God, I can't wait for this answer. Does it come natural?
No, I just kind of like sit there and start writing. I mean, the way I write is like every morning I get up and I'm like, I write. And some days you write 2 pages, and some days you write 2 words. And you're like, well, today sucked. Because like, I get up early, like the sun's not up, it's like 4 a.m. and that's when I work because no one's awake, the dog's not even awake. So I'm not going to be bothered, so I can get like, 2 or 3 really solid hours. Because once the sun comes up in the day work, then there's a million distractions. And then my brain shuts off because the cat's screaming at me or something and I got to do stuff. So yeah, it's just the first 3. So,
This is pre-coffee.
sometimes, yeah. But it is good, yeah. In the morning, your brain's very fresh and weird.
I think you're still dreaming.
Yeah, I might still be in that state right now, yeah. Delirious jet lag state.
Well, so, the same for Sheri, too. I mean, you have to do some pretty depraved things in these movies.
Yeah, that comes naturally.
Oh, you heard it here, folks.
But one thing that was, actually, I'm going to go back to one quick. One of my favorite scenes was a scene by the soda machine because we had written it differently, and at that point Sheri's like, I don't really think this feels like Baby anymore. I don't want to do it. Because I would defer to that. I'm not going to...
This is the last night of shooting.
It was the last night of shooting. And we went off to the side, me, Sheri, and Sean Whalen, and we made up the whole thing in like a few minutes, and they remembered it exactly, and that's what we did for the movie, just because... And I like it a lot better than what we were going to do. It was a different vibe. So.
Yeah, well, it was like what you were saying earlier, your character is who she needs to be in those moments. Like, you're very seductive in some of those moments and charming right before.
Yeah.
Baby has like a fluffy sexiness to her victims. I think that's how, that's her way. Luring them.
She was very excited about being recognized too.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, because celebrity plays a lot, like the Manson, it plays a role in these movies. That's,
Oh yeah, they love being famous.
who doesn't? I keep saying no more questions, but then I'm taking more
Well, people
questions.
are here, they still have questions.
Let's ask them.
We're
Let's
still
let
getting
them
answers.
answer.
Would you ever consider remaking of yourself?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I always loved, the closest I got was, I was supposed to do this 9-part Manson movie for, I forget which, and Bret, Easton, Ellis was going to write it. And we were working on it. So he was going to have to write this 700-page script, and it was going to be 9 hours long, I think, and just go into everything. And then what happened was, even though it was a weird conflict, that there was a show called Aquarius with David Duchovny that was sort of set in that time period. And the second that came out, they just canceled the whole project instantly. So, yeah. And then, I don't know. I don't know if the Manson was tapped. Because with, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Well, I enjoy
back at
seeing
it.
all of the little parts of all your movies, kind of, well, in these last 3 movies, kind of touch on it just a little bit.
I mean, I'm obsessed with all the Manson stuff. I've always been since I was a little kid, so that's why it's always in there somehow. Hey, good times, right?
So Rob, I know you did some acting back in the day. Was there a reason that you haven't acted in any of these films?
I don't like watching directors act unless they're good, like say Scorsese. I think he's great, and King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. And I have no desire to act because I feel that I would be horrible. And I don't need to prove that to everyone. I can just feel that within myself.
I did remember, I forgot exactly what it was, but you did narrate sort of I think it was like a Charles Manson.
Yeah, and I hated doing it too. It was
But
really
I watched it, and I was like, I remember you were casting people for the narrator for your movie.
Yeah.
And I said, Rob, your voice is fantastic, you should just narrate. You said you can't afford me.
I've turned down a lot of them. I did get offered some good stuff for a while. I got offered to be in Sin City, I remember, and a few other movies, and I turned them all down because I can't bear to watch myself. And I don't want you to have to either.
I'm just wondering how much time was taken yeah, like this friendly kind of like run with that family don't seem like
Yeah, I stole that line from Ted Bundy because I was watching all these different news stories on, real news from that whatever time period of like executions and stuff. And there was one where that was Ted Bundy's, all people, his last words, give my love to my family and my friends. Like, okay, but they're all dead, Ted. I'm sorry. So I don't know, I just thought that was just such a funny thing to say, so I stole that.
We discussed a little bit earlier, Sheri, about the cat film, and about the cat tattoo, and I think your character is very cat-like, so you're a killer, but you kind of play with your prey. And I was just wondering, maybe about there was some instance with the tattoo on the chest, with the tiny memorial tattoo that really on your arm. I guess I'm wondering where the inspiration for the tattoos came from.
That would be more, I don't know, did we figure that out together? Yeah, I think we were like, oh, what kind of tattoo should baby have? Really prison looking.
Yeah, we started
like
researching it. I was
scratchy.
looking at a lot of especially Russian prison tattoos. They have such a particular look, and I think we based them mostly all off that stuff, which I started doing. In 31, Doomhead has this big tattoo on his back, this devil, fucking this lady, and that was like a Russian prison inspired one. That kind of messed with that. That's where the
With
cat came from.
thing,
Yeah, the cat was one in that style. Sometimes things just sort of luckily come off like this master thought out plan, and it just sort of I don't know, I think you just get in a zone working on things, you don't realize, oh yeah, there's a cat tattoo, there's a cat in there. Like things start making connections that you're not consciously doing at the time. You're just sort of working such long hours, always focused on it, that new ideas keep popping up, but it's not always like, I wish I could lie and say it was all meticulously planned, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not like you have a page where you describe each character, you're like, their hobbies are.
Yeah, I know, I probably should, but
She likes fluffy cats.
sometimes it just works out that way.
Otis likes ice cream.
Like say, yeah, like when they play Go Fish.
Oh yeah, no.
Like that was just, that was just the only card game
Yeah.
Bill knew how to play. So that's why we did that. Oh, thanks.
Your Danny and Julio Rivera, that whole thing is awesome. Is that your way of talking El Superviso in the movie, or that Santo inspired?
It's a very much more Santo inspired. This is gonna sound like bullshit, but the El Superviso thing never even crossed my mind. And then like once people started seeing pictures, they go, oh, El Superviso. I'm like, oh fuck, yeah, right, shit. I never thought of that. Because like I said, you're always in like this tunnel vision that it never even crossed my mind. But I always thought like Blue Demon and El Santo looked so badass, like with the mask, but then there was a really nice suit. It's such a weird way to function. And that's why I was like, because that gang changed a lot. Like it's a biker gang and it's this gang, and I arrived at the masked wrestler sort of gang because I thought like, well, introducing them in the third act, if it was just random biker guys or something, you wouldn't remember them enough. You'd be like, wait, is that guy, which guy is that? And I thought like, well, if they're all sort of faceless with the red masks, then they're sort of just one big force.
Oh, but your number one question was, mask off?
I know.
Take mask
Every
off,
act's like,
boss?
so at what point do I take the mask off? I'm like, at no point. And it didn't matter how many times I answered that question. Like, so after the machete fight, the mask is coming off, right? Nope.
There was that one very pivotal scene in the movie, though, when we find out who Danny Trejo's son is, and we see him unmasked, Emilio's character unmasked.
Yeah.
He says, revenge is coming, Papa. And that's such a part of breaking into that third act.
Yeah, that was actually the last thing we shot because Danny Trejo I knew it had to be Danny Trejo because if it wasn't Danny, you might not remember the face later. Because, that guy gets shot and then you're supposed to remember an hour later, oh, that's the guy I would have shot. You wouldn't remember. And Danny ties it into Rejects, but I didn't know if Danny would, because Danny only makes 300 movies a week. So his schedule is a little whacked. So I didn't know almost till like 2 days before we shot it if it was going to be Danny. There's a great story that someone told me is like, Danny and Emilio Rivera have the same agent. And I don't know if this is true, but I thought it was funny. And Emilio thought, oh, well, I'll just get all the roles Danny turns down. Not realizing Danny doesn't turn down any roles. So, what's that? Oh, you told me that? Oh, Jeff? Yeah, that's a Jeff Phillips story. So, and I think there's actually several Danny Trejos because I was with him in Seattle and he was hawking his tacos, and within 24 hours he was pulling a baby out of a burning car. I go, I can't. How would he literally have time to fly there and do that? So there may be several Danny Trejos among us.
Anyone else?
Yes. Ever since the Universal breakup, but now they came crawling back, and House of Thousand Corpses is now at Universal Horror Nights. Have you considered doing something in the future, or is this just a booty call?
Oh, doing something with Universal?
Sure.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I mean, I don't hold grudges. I don't care.
Just under strict conditions, like leave me the fuck alone?
No, just the strictest condition is the checks have to clear so you can make a movie. Because as ridiculous as it sounds, I don't mean my check. I mean like it takes a really long time, man from Saban Films, until they start writing those checks. Like we're working and working, and we're like, is the money going to start flowing? And then the actors start going like, whoa. I mean, there's almost always a revolt.
Sure.
Everyone's calling their union, no one wants to show up, and then finally the money starts flowing. It is a fucked up business, I'll tell you that much.
Amazing.
Well, no. I'm glad you liked it, but like the one at Universal, I'm going to do it that way. The other way is just too much work.
Okay.
because I'm really psycho about quality control, and everybody wants to be in the haunted house. Like, I want that job, and everybody quits after the first day. It's like, wait, I gotta be in this thing 12 hours a day? This sucks, wear this mask. So yeah, it just drove me crazy. Because I'd walk through the maze to do a test and go, the fuck is everybody? Everybody want to break at the same moment? There's nothing in this maze right now. And I can't handle that. I can't handle the anxiety of that. Just like, everybody says, I want to be in one of your movies and I want to play a dead body. Until they're cast in the movie and they have to play a dead body. And they realize, oh, that meant laying on this cold floor for 12 hours covered in sticky blood, and the crew starts treating me like I'm a lamp. Like they don't care. Like, this sucks. So, yeah, that's not fun.
My wife only wanted one thing is the signature. All we have is lipstick. Can you sign one of these for her, please?
I think a pen would be better.
I don't have one.
Someone will have a pen. We'll find a pen.
Okay, right.
I often joke with my friends about sequels and spin-offs for movies, and one that was pretty clever was the Gruesome Twosome. And now that this movie came out, you could totally show how Danny Trejo gets arrested into that position.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's, yeah. Well, yeah, Danny Trejo and Diamond Dallas Page have been bugging me for a long time to do that, but, you know.
They look the same.
That is true. They don't look that different. That is true.
So I should take this moment to plug, for those of you that don't know, tomorrow, the movie's available everywhere, digital, DVD, anywhere you want.
I wouldn't have came here if I knew that.
Pardon? So buy it, and I'm sure all of you already own it. Tell all your friends how much you love the movie. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you!
Thank you. Have a good night.